Good evening and thank you for joining us. I am Nashay Taylor. The battle lines are being drawn again over passing gun control legislation in Congress after two mass shootings in Atlanta and Boulder, Colorado. Democrats want stricter laws, but Republicans say they'll fight to protect the Second Amendment. NBC's Jennifer Johnson has more.
Members of Congress visiting the sites of the Atlanta area spa mass shooting that left 8 dead, 6 Asian Americans, as Democrats push again for stricter gun control laws.
This shooter, a 21-year-old male, bought his gun that morning with no waiting period.
There is no federal waiting period for gun buyers, but Democrats are hoping to get enough Republicans on board to pass a bill expanding background checks.
Don't count us out. I think the politics have shifted dramatically since 2013, even since 2016, the last time that we had a vote on background checks.
Some Republicans say better mental health treatment is the solution to gun violence, not new laws. But others in the GOP believe some agreement can be reached.
You're not going to get to 60 votes with legislation that requires when a father wants to sell his gun to his son to have to get a background check. So I still think the best way to do this is focus on commercial sales.
The fight over gun control comes as President Biden urges Congress to pass the For the People Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. The president denouncing Georgia's new law that he says violates voters' rights.
It's an atrocity.
Voting rights groups have already filed lawsuits to try and overturn the Georgia law, claiming the changes will make it harder for lawful voters to take part in elections. Jennifer Johnson, NBC News, Washington.
President Biden has also asked the Justice Department to see what authority it may have to counter the new voting restrictions in Georgia. Tonight, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz delivered his third State of the State address from his former social studies classroom at Mankato West High School. Walz says normalcy is on the horizon, but it's important for Minnesotans to stay vigilant.
The only way we'll truly beat this virus is by continuing to social distance, wear a mask, and get tested. And of course, most importantly, Minnesotans need to get vaccinated.
Walz also says the state is seeing a spike in COVID cases. He says it's going to take Minnesotans continuing to make sacrifices to get students back in the classroom this fall. Now that a jury of 15 people has been selected in the Derrick Chauvin trial for the death of George Floyd, opening statements from the prosecution are set to begin tomorrow morning. That will be followed by witness testimony, which could take about 4 weeks.
The eyes of a movement, one that sparked protests worldwide in the name of George Floyd, shift to a courtroom in Minneapolis.
Anything else for the record?
Now to opening statements in the trial of Derrick Chauvin. The former Minneapolis police officer has pleaded not guilty to the charges he faces: second-degree unintentional murder, second-degree manslaughter, and third-degree murder in the death of George Floyd. Outside the courtroom, emotions will be running high. There have already been multiple protests throughout the city.
They've done so peacefully, and they've assembled and gathered peacefully. We will continue to expect more demonstrations.
But the destruction that happened in May 2020 in the aftermath of Floyd's death is still fresh on the minds of city officials, and it's why the building that houses the courtroom has virtually become a fortress due to increased security measures, with the mayor saying there's more to come.
Residents should be expecting a gradual increase in law enforcement and National Guard presence as we progress through the trial.
The first step in this trial,
How does that make you feel?
I'm okay with that.
Was getting through jury selection, which lasted exactly 2 weeks.
You will serve on our jury.
Resulting in 15 jurors, 14 of which will be a part of the trial.
This 15th juror was to make sure that we have 14 people show up on Monday.
Their identities remain unknown for now. Attorneys for the Floyd family are pleased the trial can now proceed and wrote, "This is not a hard case. George Floyd had more witnesses to his death than any other person ever. And it will be witnesses who now come to the stand, called by both prosecutors for the state and defense attorneys for Derrick Chauvin. Among what we know will be talked about,
Put him up on the dash.
a portion of a 2019 George Floyd arrest, for which he was never charged, but one where he ended up being sent to the hospital instead of jail. An interaction with police, defense attorneys for Chauvin argued, was similar to May 2020. A paramedic from that day in 2019 is also expected to testify.
The whole point here is we have medical evidence on what happens when Mr. Floyd is faced with virtually the same situation. Confrontation by police at gunpoint, followed by a rapid ingestion of some drugs.
Our system of justice is a bit on trial. Can we give Mr. Chauvin a fair trial? Because that's essential. Can we give the state a fair chance to find him guilty under the law and the evidence?
The trial is expected to last up to 4 weeks. All the while, a city, a family, a movement watches anxiously over what criminal accountability looks like in the death of George Floyd.
Hundreds of people are facing charges for crimes related to federal COVID relief programs. The Justice Department announced on Friday 474 people are accused of fraud after investigators found more than $500 million was taken from relief programs. So far, DOJ prosecutors have charged 120 people who they say targeted the Paycheck Protection Program. More than 140 people have also been charged for unemployment insurance fraud since the start of the pandemic. A state bill could give you the chance to bring up your driver's license info on your phone. The bill calls for an electronic proof of licensing system through the North Dakota Department of Transportation. It would be in a secure format, and the user can choose what information is shown to prove age or license. The program would be optional with an extra $5 charge to opt in.
This would be just in addition to your physical card. If the phone is lost or stolen, the license can be deleted remotely before a new digital version is issued. It is also going to be less vulnerable to fraud and counterfeiting.
The bill passed in the House and will soon be voted on in the Senate. Lawmakers are drawing on similar programs that are already in use in other states. Now summer is in to give us the latest look at your forecast.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I was hoping to get a beautiful tower cam time lapse of our sunset tonight with those few clouds, but unfortunately we just didn't get much as the clouds continued to increase throughout the evening, and we're still continuing to see those clouds pass by across the sky. But right now on satellite and radar, you can see those clouds continuing to filter in. The extreme northern valley and northern Minnesota still in the clear for now, but those clouds are on the increase over the next couple of hours. Despite the increase in cloud cover, it was a fairly mild day. We had some low 40s for highs across much of northwestern Minnesota, mid 40s through the Central Valley, and some 50s across much of eastern North Dakota, with the winter minus 64 degrees. Some fire weather is on the way to Shea. I'll have details on how windy our Monday will be coming up in just a few short minutes.
All right, thanks so much, Summer. A Grand Forks garage fire caused more than $10,000 worth of damage earlier today. Crews found smoke and flames coming from an apartment complex on Library Lane. They were able to keep the fire from spreading to other garages, and no one was hurt. Still no word on the cause. A 17-year-old is seriously hurt after rolling his car early this morning near Buxton. Troopers say around 1 a.m., Nicholas Tinkler was heading north on I-29 to Grand Forks when he fell asleep, lost control of his car, and drove into the median. The car was thrown and rolled to rest in the southbound lane of the interstate. Tinkler was taken to a local hospital and was treated for his injuries. The Grand Forks Police is asking for help locating 5 individuals on its weekly wanted list. Their pictures are on your screen right now. If you have information about their whereabouts, you're asked to call police at 701-787-8000. And starting on Monday, your commute downtown may take a little bit longer. Starting at 8 a.m., Broadway between 2nd and 4th Avenues North will be closed to car traffic and parking to facilitate for a private function happening in the area. And the southbound lane on Broadway between 14th and 15th Avenues North will also be closed as crews will be repairing overhead power lines. Later on Valley News Live at 10, local artists are building the community in downtown Fargo. Plus, Summer is back. She will fill us in on what we can expect for the rest of the week in your forecast.